English Listening Podcast. TOEIC 700 points. Chapter 1, Business Communication. In today's global business environment, effective communication skills are essential for success. Many companies operate internationally, requiring employees to interact with colleagues from diverse cultural backgrounds. Email has become the primary method of written business communication, replacing traditional letters and memos. When composing business emails, professionals should maintain a formal tone while being concise and clear. The subject line should accurately reflect the content and urgency of the message. Opening and closing remarks should follow established conventions, such as beginning with "Dear," followed by the recipient's name and title, and ending with "Best regards" or a similar expression. Business presentations represent another critical form of professional communication. An effective presenter must capture the audience's attention from the beginning and maintain their interest throughout. Visual aids such as charts, graphs, and slides can enhance understanding and retention of information. However, these tools should complement the verbal presentation rather than replace it. Speakers should practice their delivery thoroughly before important presentations to ensure smooth pacing and natural transitions between topics. Negotiation skills are highly valued in the corporate world. Successful negotiators understand the importance of preparation, including researching the other party's interests and constraints. During negotiations, active listening is as important as articulating one's own position. By carefully observing verbal and nonverbal cues, negotiators can identify underlying concerns and adjust their approach accordingly. The goal of negotiation should be to reach a mutually beneficial agreement rather than to win at the other party's expense. Remote work has transformed many aspects of business communication. Virtual meetings require different preparation and participation strategies compared to in-person gatherings. Participants should test their technology in advance, minimize background distractions, and speak clearly into their microphones. Meeting organizers should distribute agendas beforehand and follow up with written summaries of decisions and action items. Despite the convenience of digital communication, some discussions are still more effective when conducted face-to-face, particularly those involving sensitive or complex issues. Chapter 2, Technology and Innovation. Technological innovation continues to transform industries at an unprecedented pace. Artificial intelligence applications are being integrated into numerous business processes, from customer service to supply chain management. Machine learning algorithms analyze vast quantities of data to identify patterns and make predictions that would be impossible for humans to discern manually. However, organizations must ensure that these technologies are deployed ethically, with appropriate safeguards against bias and privacy violations. Cloud computing has revolutionized information technology infrastructure. Instead of maintaining expensive on-premises servers, companies can now access computing resources on demand through the internet. This model offers greater flexibility and scalability, allowing businesses to adjust their capacity according to fluctuating needs. Cloud service providers typically offer three main categories of services: infrastructure as a service, IaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, and software as a service, SaaS. Each category represents a different level of abstraction and management responsibility. Cybersecurity has become a critical concern as organizations increasingly rely on digital systems. Malicious actors constantly develop new methods to compromise networks and steal sensitive information. Common attack vectors include phishing emails, malware distribution, and exploitation of software vulnerabilities. To protect themselves, companies must implement multiple layers of defense, including firewalls, encryption, and intrusion detection systems. Regular security training for employees is equally important, as human error remains one of the most significant vulnerabilities in any security framework. The Internet of Things, IoT, connects everyday objects to networks, enabling them to send and receive data. Smart homes feature appliances that can be controlled remotely through smartphone applications. In industrial settings, IoT sensors monitor equipment performance and environmental conditions, allowing for predictive maintenance and optimization of operating parameters. The healthcare industry has adopted wearable devices that track patients' vital signs and activity levels, providing valuable information to medical professionals. As IoT deployment expands, addressing concerns about data privacy and system interoperability will become increasingly important. Chapter 3: Environmental Sustainability. Environmental consciousness has grown significantly in recent decades as scientific evidence of climate change has accumulated. Carbon dioxide emissions from burning fossil fuels trap heat in the atmosphere, leading to rising global temperatures. This warming triggers various consequences, including more frequent extreme weather events, shifting precipitation patterns, and rising sea levels. International agreements, such as the Paris Climate Accord, establish frameworks for nations to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to unavoidable climate impacts. Renewable energy sources offer alternatives to fossil fuels with substantially lower environmental impacts. Solar panels convert sunlight directly into electricity through the photovoltaic effect. Wind turbines harness the kinetic energy of moving air to generate power. Hydroelectric dams capture the potential energy of flowing water. Geothermal plants utilize heat from within the earth. While the initial investment for renewable energy infrastructure can be significant, operating costs are generally lower than for conventional power plants, and technological improvements continue to drive down overall expenses. Sustainable agriculture practices aim to produce food while preserving soil fertility and minimizing environmental damage. Crop rotation prevents nutrient depletion and helps control pests naturally. Conservation tillage reduces soil erosion and maintains organic matter. Precision farming uses technology to apply water, fertilizers, and pesticides only where and when needed, increasing efficiency and reducing waste. Organic farming avoids synthetic chemicals, relying instead on natural processes to manage fertility and pest control. These approaches can yield long-term benefits for both farmers and ecosystems. Waste management represents a critical environmental challenge in modern societies. Landfills produce methane, a potent greenhouse gas, as organic waste decomposes without oxygen. Incinerators reduce waste volume but may release harmful emissions if not properly controlled. Recycling diverts materials from disposal facilities and conserves resources by converting used products into new ones. Composting transforms organic waste into valuable soil amendments. The concept of the circular economy envisions systems where products are designed for durability, reuse, and eventual recycling, minimizing resource extraction and waste generation throughout their life cycle. Chapter 4: Global Economics. International trade has expanded dramatically due to reduced transportation costs, improved communication technologies, and lower trade barriers. Countries export goods and services in which they have a comparative advantage, meaning they can produce them relatively more efficiently than other items. This specialization increases overall productivity and living standards. However, trade also creates winners and losers within economies, as some industries expand while others contract in response to foreign competition. Governments often implement policies to assist workers and communities affected by these transitions. Financial markets connect investors with businesses and governments seeking capital. Stock exchanges provide venues for trading ownership shares in publicly listed companies. Bond markets facilitate borrowing through debt securities with varying maturities and interest rates. Currency markets establish exchange rates between different national monies. Derivatives markets trade contracts based on the future value of underlying assets. These markets serve essential economic functions, including price discovery, risk management, and efficient allocation of resources. However, they can also experience periods of volatility and occasionally severe crises. Economic inequality has increased in many countries over recent decades. This trend reflects various factors, including technological change that favors highly skilled workers, declining labor union membership, and globalization that exposes some workers to greater competition. Excessive inequality can undermine social cohesion and limit economic mobility. Policy responses may include progressive taxation, expanded educational opportunities, stronger social safety nets, and labor market reforms. The appropriate balance between equity and efficiency remains a subject of ongoing debate among economists and policymakers. Central banks play crucial roles in national economies by implementing monetary policy. They influence interest rates and money supply to promote price stability and sustainable economic growth. During recessions, central banks typically reduce interest rates to stimulate borrowing and spending. When economies overheat and inflation accelerates, they raise rates to cool activity. Following the 2008 financial crisis, many central banks adopted unconventional policies such as quantitative easing, purchasing large quantities of financial assets to inject liquidity into markets. These institutions must maintain independence from political pressures to fulfill their mandates effectively. Chapter 5: Healthcare Systems. Healthcare systems worldwide face the challenge of balancing access, quality, and cost containment. Single-payer systems fund healthcare through taxation, with the government acting as the primary insurer for all citizens. Multi-payer systems feature multiple insurance providers, which may be public or private. Out-of-pocket payments require individuals to pay directly for services at the point of care. Most countries employ some combination of these financing mechanisms. The appropriate mix depends on social values, economic conditions, and historical development. Preventive medicine focuses on disease prevention rather than treatment. Vaccination programs protect populations against infectious diseases by stimulating immune responses before exposure to pathogens. Regular screening examinations can detect diseases in early stages when treatment is most effective. Health education campaigns promote behaviors that reduce risk factors for chronic conditions. Public health measures such as clean water supply, sanitation infrastructure, and food safety regulations prevent disease at the community level. Investing in prevention typically yields substantial returns through reduced treatment costs and improved productivity. Medical technology advances continuously, introducing new diagnostic and therapeutic capabilities. Imaging techniques such as magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, and computed tomography, CT, allow clinicians to visualize internal structures non-invasively. Minimally invasive surgical procedures reduce recovery time and complications compared to traditional open surgeries. Genetic testing identifies inherited risk factors for diseases and guides personalized treatment plans. Remote monitoring devices enable healthcare providers to track patients' conditions between office visits. While these innovations improve care, they also contribute to rising healthcare expenditures. The healthcare workforce encompasses numerous professions with complementary roles. Physicians diagnose conditions and prescribe treatments based on extensive scientific training. Nurses provide direct patient care and coordinate services across healthcare teams. Pharmacists ensure appropriate medication use and monitor for interactions or adverse effects. Allied health professionals such as physical therapists, respiratory therapists, and radiologic technologists deliver specialized services. Administrative staff manage scheduling, billing, and record-keeping. Shortages in various healthcare occupations affect many regions, particularly in rural and underserved communities. Chapter 6: Urban Development. Urbanization continues as people migrate from rural areas to cities seeking economic opportunities and improved services. This population shift creates pressure on housing markets, transportation systems, and public infrastructure. Urban planning attempts to guide development in ways that enhance livability while accommodating growth. Effective planning requires coordination across multiple sectors and levels of government. Citizen participation in planning processes helps ensure that development reflects community values and addresses local needs. Transportation networks determine how easily people and goods can move within urban areas. Mass transit systems such as subways, light rail, and bus networks provide efficient alternatives to private vehicles, reducing congestion and emissions. Bicycle infrastructure encourages active transportation with health and environmental benefits. Pedestrian-friendly street design improves safety and enhances neighborhood vitality. Transportation planning increasingly adopts multimodal approaches that integrate various travel options rather than focusing predominantly on automobile traffic. Affordable housing represents a growing challenge in many cities where demand exceeds supply. Rising housing costs consume increasing portions of household incomes, particularly for lower-wage workers. Strategies to address affordability include inclusionary zoning requirements, density bonuses for developers who include below-market units, public housing programs, and rental assistance vouchers. Some jurisdictions have implemented rent control measures, though economists debate their long-term effectiveness. Increasing housing supply generally requires overcoming regulatory barriers and community resistance to new development. Smart city initiatives apply information technology to urban management. Sensors collect data on traffic flow, air quality, energy consumption, and other parameters. Analytics platforms process this information to identify patterns and optimization opportunities. Mobile applications connect residents with municipal services and provide real-time information about public transit and other city systems. While smart technologies promise greater efficiency and responsiveness, they also raise concerns about privacy, cybersecurity, and equitable access. Successful implementation requires technical expertise, institutional capacity, and community engagement. Chapter 7: Cultural Heritage. Cultural heritage encompasses the legacy of physical artifacts, intangible traditions, and natural features that communities inherit from past generations. Historic preservation efforts maintain significant buildings and districts that embody architectural styles and construction techniques from different periods. Archaeological sites provide insights into ancient civilizations through careful excavation and analysis of material remains. Archives preserve documents that record historical events and everyday life. These resources connect contemporary societies with their roots and contribute to collective identity. Museums serve multiple functions in preserving and interpreting cultural heritage. They collect and conserve objects of artistic, historical, or scientific importance. Exhibition spaces present these collections to the public with contextual information that enhances understanding. Educational programs engage visitors of all ages through tour, workshops, and lectures. Research activities advance knowledge in relevant fields. Modern museums increasingly acknowledge their responsibility to represent diverse perspectives and address historical injustices, including the ethical questions surrounding artifacts acquired during colonial periods. Intangible cultural heritage includes traditions, performing arts, social practices, rituals, and knowledge systems transmitted across generations. Unlike physical objects, these expressions exist primarily through their enactment by living practitioners. Language represents a fundamental element of intangible heritage, encoding unique worldviews and cultural concepts. Traditional craftsmanship techniques embody accumulated knowledge about materials and tools. Oral traditions preserve historical narratives and cultural values. The UNESCO Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage established an international framework for identifying and protecting these expressions. Cultural tourism connects travelers with heritage sites and living traditions. When managed responsibly, it generates economic benefits for local communities and supports conservation efforts. However, excessive or poorly managed tourism can damage fragile sites, commercialize traditions, and disrupt community life. Sustainable cultural tourism requires careful planning, visitor education, and mechanisms to ensure that benefits flow to local stakeholders. Digital technologies offer new possibilities for virtual access to heritage, potentially reducing physical impacts while broadening participation. Chapter 8: Education Systems. Education systems worldwide share common goals while differing in structure and emphasis. Early childhood education develops foundational cognitive and social skills that influence lifelong learning trajectories. Primary education builds fundamental literacy and numeracy abilities essential for further education and daily functioning. Secondary education expands subject knowledge and develops critical thinking skills. Higher education provides specialized training for professional careers and advances knowledge through research. Vocational education prepares students for specific occupations through practical training. Each educational level builds upon previous learning while serving distinct developmental needs. Assessment methods evaluate student learning for various purposes. Formative assessments provide ongoing feedback to guide instruction and identify areas needing additional support. Summative assessments measure achievement at the conclusion of instructional units or programs. Standardized tests enable comparisons across different classrooms, schools, or jurisdictions. Portfolio assessment collects student work samples over time to demonstrate growth and accomplishment. Effective assessment systems balance these approaches to generate useful information without excessive testing burden or narrowing of curriculum. Educational technology continues to evolve, offering new possibilities for teaching and learning. Learning management systems organize course materials and track student progress. Interactive simulations allow students to explore complex phenomena through virtual experimentation. Adaptive learning platforms adjust content difficulty based on individual performance. Collaboration tools facilitate group projects across distance. While technology offers valuable capabilities, its effectiveness depends on thoughtful implementation aligned with pedagogical goals and supported by appropriate professional development for educators. Teacher quality significantly influences educational outcomes. Comprehensive preparation programs combine subject matter knowledge with pedagogical techniques and supervised clinical experience. Induction programs support new teachers through the challenging early years in the profession. Ongoing professional development helps teachers refine their practice and incorporate new research findings. Evaluation systems provide feedback for improvement while identifying both exemplary performance and areas of concern. Creating conditions that attract and retain talented individuals in teaching careers represents a priority for education systems seeking continuous improvement. Chapter 9: Global Health Challenges. Infectious diseases continue to threaten public health despite medical advances. Emerging pathogens periodically cross from animal hosts to humans, potentially triggering epidemics or pandemics. Antimicrobial resistance reduces the effectiveness of antibiotics and other treatments as microorganisms evolve defenses against them. Vector-borne diseases spread through insects such as mosquitoes and ticks, with transmission patterns shifting in response to climate change. International cooperation through organizations like the World Health Organization coordinates surveillance, research, and response efforts across national boundaries. Non-communicable diseases account for an increasing proportion of global mortality as populations age and lifestyles change. Cardiovascular diseases result from complex interactions between genetic factors, diet, physical activity, and other influences. Various forms of cancer develop when cellular mechanisms that control growth malfunction. Diabetes disrupts blood glucose regulation with wide-ranging complications. Chronic respiratory conditions impair lung function and gas exchange. Prevention strategies emphasize modifiable risk factors such as tobacco use, unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, and harmful alcohol consumption. Mental health disorders affect individuals across all regions and demographic groups. Depression manifests through persistent sadness, loss of interest, and disrupted daily functioning. Anxiety disorders involve excessive worry or fear that interferes with normal activities. Substance use disorders develop when recreational consumption becomes compulsive despite negative consequences. Schizophrenia alters perception, thought processes, and emotional responses. Despite growing recognition of these conditions as legitimate medical concerns, stigma and inadequate treatment resources persist in many settings. Health inequities reflect systematic differences in health status between populations defined by social, economic, demographic, or geographic factors. Social determinants such as education level, income, housing conditions, and environmental exposures strongly influence health outcomes. Historical patterns of discrimination and marginalization create enduring health disparities for certain groups. Addressing these inequities requires both targeted interventions for vulnerable populations and broader policy changes that improve living conditions and service access. Health equity represents both an ethical imperative and a practical necessity for achieving overall population health improvement. Chapter 10, Future Trends. Demographic shifts will shape societies and economies in coming decades. Population aging in developed countries results from declining fertility rates combined with increasing life expectancy. This trend creates challenges for pension systems, healthcare financing, and labor force participation. Meanwhile, many developing regions maintain younger age structures with different policy implications. Migration flows respond to economic disparities, political instability, and environmental pressures. Understanding these demographic patterns helps organizations and governments prepare for changing consumption patterns, workforce composition, and service needs. Automation and artificial intelligence will continue transforming work across industries. Routine physical tasks increasingly shift to machines capable of consistent performance without fatigue. Algorithms handle information processing functions from data entry to preliminary analysis. These technologies improve productivity and create new possibilities, but also disrupt traditional employment patterns. Workers must develop skills that complement rather than compete with automated systems. Education and training institutions face the challenge of preparing students for careers that may not yet exist, while developing adaptable capabilities applicable across changing circumstances. Climate adaptation will become increasingly necessary as some degree of environmental change is already inevitable. Infrastructure must withstand more frequent extreme weather events while maintaining essential services. Agricultural systems need varieties and practices suited to altered growing conditions. Water management systems must accommodate changing precipitation patterns and rising sea levels. Public health systems must prepare for shifting disease vectors and heat-related illnesses. Effective adaptation strategies combine technological solutions with institutional flexibility and community engagement. Space exploration enters a new era with increased participation from private companies alongside traditional government programs. Satellite technology provides communication services, Earth observation capabilities, and navigation systems with growing commercial applications. Scientific missions continue advancing our understanding of the solar system and beyond. Discussions about resource utilization and potential human settlement raise complex ethical and legal questions. International cooperation frameworks attempt to balance national interests with the principle that space exploration should benefit humanity collectively.